You're listening to Tech Innovator, the podcast dedicated to cutting edge technologies brought to you by IEEE Techverse, Sri Lanka.
Hello and welcome you all to the first episode of Season 2 of Tech Innovator podcast series, brought to you by the IEEE Techverse of Sri Lanka. With Tech Innovator, we bring to you the latest cutting edge and bleeding edge technologies. This segment fully focuses on advancement of technologies and their applications. I am Devni Dharmasooriya, and today with me I have Tuhan Sapumanage, the founder and CEO at Transpire Lanka. He was the youngest in the world to complete a STEM BSc and CIMA and is currently reading for an LLB from the University of London. He is also an IEEE published researcher on machine learning. While being a CIMA lecturer at the Wisdom Business Academy, Tuhan is a TV personality at Charana TV for technology and finance and economy related topics. Hello, Tuhan. It's an honor to have you with us here today.
Hi, Devni. Thanks a lot for the introduction and thanks a lot for having me.
Yes, today I think this episode will be special in its own way because I think we will be able to give the audience a fresh perspective, a new viewpoint into our topic. And let's get into our topic. In today's session, we will be discussing real world business applications of machine learning. Now, we live in a digital world, and artificial intelligence is already present in society from the home to the corporate office. And machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence, which allows a machine to automatically learn from past data without programming explicitly. Machine learning has advanced from the age of science fiction to become a major component of modern enterprises, especially as businesses across almost all sectors use various machine learning technologies. Many use cases are emerging from all sectors as machine learning is being implemented in places like logistics, manufacturing, hospitality, travel and tourism, energy, and much more. So, Tuhan, considering that long list of illustrations, could you express your ideas on why we need machine learning for the world and as people?
Sure, Devni. I think the first bit from your description took me back to my university days about the definition of machine learning. I think we all have come a long way since then. I think good old days were description from the good old days. But if you you very correctly said, right? So machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence, AI. And if we look at it in a more simple term, what machine learning is, people usually think, especially even managers, senior level employees who only has a business background, they think machine learning is some sort of a magical technology that can solve all their problems. I mean, it to a large extent can solve a lot of problems, but it's not sort of a magic. It's not some sort of an advanced robot that can that is here to terminate life. In practice, it is much more simple. And if I try to put it in this way, now when computers started, computers were able to process large amounts of data, right? If you give a Excel sheet to the computer with millions of data points, it can quickly process that and give you a chart. But whereas humans can only understand the chart, and if you give a human to understand that Excel sheet, they would horribly fail at it. Now, machine learning, or rather the age of AI, took this a step forward. And now not only can they learn from those all of that data points, but they also can learn from the future interactions. For an example, if Google Maps suggests you to go somewhere, and based on your past data, and if you start going to a new place on the same location at the same time, they would learn from that and suggest you new results. Same goes for Uber Eats algorithm. If you were a fan of pizza, but now you started using burgers recently, eating burgers recently, it would learn from that new interactions. So what machine learning or AI did was, in the age of AI, they not only can process a lot of data and understand you, but also can learn from the new interactions. Now, this, if for the non-tech crowd or even for the tech crowd, if you're wondering, does that replace human like you all fear in the future? The spoilerality is no, it won't. As to why, we will discuss in the in the next few minutes. But to give you a quick overview, we had this excellent case study from Peter Thiel, who founded PayPal, and also if I'm not mistaken, CEO of Palantir, where they talk about how AI only helps human, and it's actually the human who actually make use of that data. We'll look into all that in the next few minutes. But to put simple, AI or ML, machine learning, is not a magical technology that can solve everything, but something that can learn from your past behavior, then also from the future interactions, and give you the data needed, give you the insights needed for the human to make the ultimate decision. Hope that makes sense, Devni.
Yes. So, from what I understood, it's humans are smarter than computers, but we do not have the processing power of a supercomputer, right? So, I
Yes.
guess that's where the machine learning comes in. And knowing this prospect, I would say scientists, researchers, businessmen, all of them have used machine learning. They have used and developed machine learning into the present state that it is now using fundamental principles. And let's take that and move on to the next question, which is what is the present status of machine learning? And let's go further where machine learning is used in real world businesses, starting from, say, the global context. And let's move on to a few local examples, shall we?
Excellent. So, if you look at, I mean, we do here, if you tune into business news, especially from US, from the Western Hemisphere, and somewhere in Southeast Asia, you would see that companies are increasingly adopting machine learning to solve their day-to-day problems. And if I try to give you a laundry list, if I try to give you a list of areas where machine learning is used, that's, I mean, we would probably be that would be a loop that we cannot complete. But if I try to organize it in a more coherent, in a more logical way, the way I see it, there are three predominant areas that machine learning is used. First, for optimization, from human performance to asset optimization, usage of assets, and for our day-to-day interactions, and for healthcare. So if I try to move a bit, if I try to explore a bit on the optimization aspect, there was this excellent case study from Google that was published by Vox, US media channel, where they talked about how humans were used in trying to manage the electricity usage of their data centers. But eventually, when they started analyzing data and using AI, you can see there was this nice chart where how it dropped from usage dropped from about, I think, 80%, if I'm not mistaken, by a huge margin after they started using AI. And more case studies about how those companies are partnering up with energy companies, utility companies, to use the existing resources that we have on Earth and try to get the maximum out of it. So optimization part, and we'll look into how HR optimization goes into play in with Sri Lankan examples. And secondly, like I said, data interactions from Siri, understanding what we say, voice recognition, to this very instance, right? When I'm speaking to the microphone, how it ignores background noise and only filters out what we speak about, what we speak, only our voice. To, like I said, Google Maps, to even Facebook algorithm, your social media algorithm, how it's using the data about you to give you a curator feed that only that would fit you. So if if someone thinks that the entire world agrees with them, it's not the case. It's curated to fit your preferences, your social media feed. And lastly, healthcare aspect of it, we are from developing drugs. For example, Pfizer, when they are developing the COVID-19 vaccine, machine learning helped them a lot. There are so many case studies about how machine learning helped them to expedite the process from years to weeks, months to weeks, to also diagnosing diseases. There are so many companies in the healthcare sector where they get the data about patients, past patients, about past trials, and try to diagnose with a much better accuracy. And there was this lately a breakthrough about even cancer, even trying to cure cancer. So machine learning, three areas where it's pretty widely adopted, especially MSP and the developed Southeast Asian countries. And moving into the Sri Lankan context, sadly, it's at a very infant stage. If I put it in a raw form, because it's not as developed, but that doesn't mean that we aren't developed as well. I mean, it's not as a better way to put it, I think, would be it's not as published as Western companies, as companies from developed countries, because there are so many companies in Sri Lanka that develop the solutions that those companies use because it's outsourced to Sri Lankan markets. So without citing any names, because so what I did was I talked to some of my friends in tech companies and big blue chip Sri Lankan companies to understand how they use machine learning. So since I can't quote them without mentioning the company name, I'll just cite the industry they are in. So in Sri Lanka, there were again three areas that I saw machine learning was used. First was about in the retail industry. If you remember, right, sometimes you might have seen companies, retail, shopping malls, supermarket give you points, right, Devni? If you have seen, if you use a
Yes.
card.
Yes,
So,
there is
but
loyalty cards and so
exactly, so people think that's because they love us, they want to give us free points, but
on.
yes, that what they do is they usually get the data about you, and they use that to predict information what you want in the future. There's this famous US case study called Dunhamley case study where they realized uh, fathers, when they come to buy diapers, they buy alcohol. Have you seen that case study while you were studying computer science? That
I think I did.
that's a
Because
famous
I
one.
remember that. Yes.
So that's a famous one. Similarly, our people are also using data from those cards to understand the consumer, to even predicting, to sending them SMS alerts. So the entire process there. And also the apparel sector. So some of the largest employers in Sri Lanka are from the apparel sector, and they use this a lot to improve the human resource they have. So from scheduling better to even from executive performance to trying to get them to work together. So trying to find the optimum team. All that HR is there. They use HR analytics heavily in the apparel sector. And also an interesting case is in predictive maintenance. Now it goes both ways. First for the consumer aspect, and secondly for the industrial aspect. Consumer aspect being, say, air conditioners that are given to us. So there was this case study from an electronic manufacturer, where not a case study, a case that a friend shared, where they get the sound of the air conditioner and try to predict and do preventative maintenance to maintain the devices without them having a downtime, to large operational production lines where they can predict things before things break, and they could take preventive steps to stop that from happening. From I think this case study was from the tire manufacturer, one of the tire manufacturers in Sri Lanka. So plenty of, but not as developed, but we do have some amount of ML in Sri Lanka. Yes, Devni, sorry I took a while.
No. So, I mean, from what you spoke, what I understood was even though this machine learning is being used, say, separately in different industries, they are hugely interwoven into each other, like even in the retail industry, in the HR section, the HR sector of the retail industry, it's been used in this way, and it's been used for preventing measures and to be proactive as a company. Machine learning certainly helps in many different ways, and you have given a very comprehensive discussion on that.
Oh,
Now that we discussed about the latest cutting edge machine learning technologies, say from HR and medicine as well, let's talk about this very particular field, Tuhan, that you dabbled in. In fact, you were looking into Peter Thiel. So I remember Peter Thiel as one of the authors of the book 0 to 1. I
yes.
remember that book, yes.
Have,
And if you, yeah,
have you read the book?
you have, yeah. So if
Okay.
you look at things in a broader sense, he is an American billionaire entrepreneur. He's a venture capitalist and founder of the very famous fintech companies, PayPal. and data analysis, Palantir Technologies. So our audience can get some context on that. So let's tell our audience on how machine learning can be useful in fintech.
Sure, Devni. So quick advice to the audience. If you haven't read the book, do read that book. It's an amazing book if you want to start a tech startup. And good that you have read it, Devni. And moving on to the question, fintech is one of the, what can I say, one of the areas where machine learning is widely adopted. But at the same time, because we are dealing with decisions that can influence the lives of so many people, because at the end of the day, everything is dependent on money, if you like it or not. It's one of the most, what can I say, controversial areas to use machine learning as well. And in cover this, you will see as to why it is the case. So the typical ones where you use machine learning, rather boring ones that we had been doing for a very long time, is processing applications to automating the application part to sending signature, all that part, right? So that part is pretty straightforward and had been in there for a few decades. So that is nothing new per se. But although accuracy has been improved lately with newer versions of machine learning, but new applications can be, I think, again broken into three areas. One is about the credit card analysis, via Apple Card, for instance, when they want to decide who should get credit. So if you, for the audience, some background, in US, if you want to borrow money, you need to have a credit score. So everything about your life is pretty much dependent on the credit score. And Apple recently released their credit card, and they started using machine learning to predict that credit score. So one area where they use it for credit analysis in deciding who should get credit, that means loans, and who shouldn't. And again, like I said earlier, it was very controversial. They had been using data from the past, and some races were discriminated, some genders were discriminated. So bunch of areas, the risk of using machine learning was there as well, because from the past data, if you look at US, there had been systematic discrimination for some parts of the society, and machine learning algorithm adopted that, and that was replicated in the Apple Card as well. So one area where machine learning was used, but again, some very controversial areas. But something less controversial is the how what we talked about, what you just cited about Peter Thiel, how they use machine learning to predict the fraud, right? So when you use credit card, sometimes there's credit card fraud. So what they realized was giving it for a human was impractical, because there are so many data, like we discussed earlier. So what they did was they started using machine learning back then, very early stages of machine learning, but now it's very much more comprehensive, where machine learning was to detect fraud and take preventative measures rather, to block those transactions. But of course, it was the human who was the last decision maker. And in terms of trading now, unlike pretty much any other country on earth, US is heavily into stocks, right? Have you seen there any articles about how Wall Street is so obsessed about money?
I've seen videos on Vox. There was one very specific, long, detailed video about the stock market. I watched that. Yes.
US, I think about 60%, 60 to 80, I can't
Mm.
remember, is invested in the stock market, whereas in Sri Lanka, it's 6%. So huge difference. US is totally, it's obsessed about stocks. And all those trading does not happen by people, it's happening by machine learning algorithms. So everything, that's how widespread it is, from credit cards to detecting fraud to trading. But of course, like we said, it's very controversial because we are dealing with people's lives. And one of the drawbacks, apart from the things controversial areas we just discussed, there are sometimes what we call black swan events, termed by Nassim Taleb in one of his books, where machine learning cannot prepare you for events that hasn't happened before, right? They call them black swan events. So machine learning cannot prepare, even though they are pretty good at predicting the future based on what happened in the past. Just a piece of advice is that it can't predict events that are happening for the first time, black swan events. So yeah, it's widely adopted. There are so many cases for that, but at the same time, it's pretty controversial and should be pretty careful in using them for something like finance, fintech, because we are dealing with people's lives. Back to them.
I believe it goes without saying that the current economic state of Sri Lanka is not the best, and the world as a whole is rapidly advancing technologically. And Sri Lanka too is adapting and emulating new trends into its business processes, I would say. And but it must be said that Sri Lanka has definitely taken a major blow to its performance. So, Tuhan, how would you say the current economic state has affected Sri Lanka tech-wise?
Excellent, Devni. I think this is a very subjective question, but my take would be uh, IT is relatively a less affected industry compared to other industries because it doesn't. I mean, it does depend on people on fuel for people to come to work, but relatively people are already savvy with tech. They can work from home as long as you have internet, computer, and electricity. You can pretty much work in the IT industry. But of course, there are power cuts, but it's not as affected compared to a say an industry that is heavily dependent on logistics, right? So in that
Mhm.
case, sorry, Devni.
No, go on, please.
Okay, so it's not as affected. And for me, I think rather than trying to be the victim of the ongoing economic crisis, I think we should people in IT. I mean, we are the futuristic people who, quote unquote, push the mankind forward. I think we should look at this as an opportunity to actually double down on IT because it's very easy to double down on that. And in the sense it's very easy to adopt another scale IT if you have the talent, and Sri Lanka there's plenty of good talent in the country. We could use the IT industry in this crisis to make up for what we have lost from other industries to actually be realize our GDP goal. So IT industry had been this goal to become a 5 billion US dollar GDP contributor ever since I got started with computer science. And we still haven't been able to achieve that, but maybe because it's relatively easier to double down on IT compared to any other industry, we probably should look at it as an opportunity to rather scale the industry. And the cost of getting started is pretty low if people are smart enough to find the resources need to learn the tech, and there's plenty of people in the country who has the talent, so maybe we could use this as an opportunity. Of course, it would be a bit insensitive to say it's not affected, but not as affected being the operative term there. Back to the evening.
Yeah. Well, considering your financial background now, apart from your experience studying machine learning, as I previously mentioned when I introduced you to the audience, you are a CIMA lecturer at the Wisdom Business Academy, and I believe that qualifies to say you have a certain solid foundation when it comes to financial literacy. Yeah. So now that you have briefed us generally on the state of the crisis Sri Lanka is in now, um, through machine learning, let's talk about what can be done for the status of Sri Lanka.
Sure,
For the
Dev.
purpose of simplicity, let me put it like this.
Mm-hmm.
How can we use machine learning for a better tomorrow?
Sure. um, so if for the take on financial literacy, I think it's an ever expanding field, just like AI. When you try to master something, Wall Street comes up with something new when you have learned it from the beginning. So it's not something that you can master and forget about it. So it's an ongoing process. And about how we could how we could think about the machine learning of tomorrow. Do you want to talk about specific to Sri Lanka or in a global general context?
Let's talk about Sri Lanka.
About how people can get into it and
Yes,
how people can learn.
what we can do.
Sure. So if you look at context, sadly, it's not much is done. I mean, there is IT syllabus in four levels. It is even A level syllabus. It's very primitive. If you have you studied IT there only for A levels or O
I
levels?
have not. No.
Okay, so I studied for O levels and it was not very comprehensive at all. I mean, if you remember, I think you should have had the first year subject on Introduction to Computer Science, right? About
Mhm.
basic office software, basic algorithm, basic pseudocode, and all that. So that is
Yeah.
exactly done, right? You should have had that, yeah.
Yes.
So that is exactly what, and viewers might relate to this. So that is exactly what you learn for 2 years in school for O level subject, and A level again another 2.5 years, and it's not as advanced as you would hope it to be. And so sadly, there's not much that is done at the moment. I mean, they are trying to do a new syllabus with law and finance built into it. I haven't seen that syllabus yet. But at the moment, there is not much done in terms of the current syllabi that we have right now. But that shouldn't discourage you, because like anything in technology, it's something that you can self-learn yourself. If you go to websites like edx.com or Coursera or Udemy, so you have free courses, you have paid courses, you can self-learn things. And believe it or not, that is exactly what happens to anyone who gets into IT after they learn basics, right? You'll be learning a bit about object-oriented programming, something that is tech crowd might understand. If you don't understand, that's completely all right. And those are the basics. And after that, you would learn the new technologies, from learning, if you are a web developer, from learning React, to learn, if you are iOS developer, learning from Swift UI, to pretty much all that you'll be self-learning yourself. So similarly, if you want to have a good career in tech, you can self-learn machine learning as well. Just type in machine learning, type in artificial intelligence, and just learn a bit about it. And I think we will cover in the next few minutes about how I got into it. I had the same journey where I had to self-learn myself. And if I can, I'm pretty sure you can as well. And I mean, it is a bit challenging with power cuts and all that, but I'm sure you will find a way. I mean, it's relatively, I mean, we have 24 hours, 3 hours, around 3 hours right now, power cut. So eventually, I mean, you have pretty much 21 hours a day to figure it out and adjust accordingly. And after you learn that, so why, you might ask, okay, why do you want to learn that? If you look at all the big companies in US, in a developed country, and even traditional companies, very companies that resist the technology, like typically say banks, Morgan Stanley to Goldman Sachs, Deutsche, all that. If they're top hiring, their most trending hires are machine learning, data science related areas. So while learn that, you will have so many opportunities to either work from here remotely or fly there and learn, because that's an area that is in high demand, and it's ever expanding right now, at least for the next decade or so. So there are plenty of, I mean, not much done right now for you to help by the authorities, sadly, but you can self-learn, and there will be so many opportunities after you self-learn on this trending area. Back to you, Devni.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched upon that. I'm sure that must have been a common question that our audience might have had. Or how would the tech and non-tech crowd, get into machine learning?
Yes.
How would someone, build their very own application and make it work? Do you have any advice on that? Any timely advice?
About personal experience, from personal experience.
Yeah, so talking about your personal experience, from what I heard, you made your first website when you were 11 years old. And as you grew up, you used machine learning applications to predict the amount of food needed in the cafeteria, was it? You
Yes.
basically taught yourself. Yeah, walk us through your research.
Sure.
Let's picture you entering into the world of machine learning as a young child, the experience you gained, the challenges you faced. Yeah, let's walk us through it.
Hope I won't get too sentimental. So like you very correctly said, like you very correctly said, I got started when I was 11, when I did my first website through a content management system, webs.com, no biggie. But that got me to start with computer science when I was 13. So that's when I started my first degree, which was the STEM degree that they mentioned in the introduction. But so time passed by, and when I was in about third, fourth year, we did this, and even up to then, we only learned about typical GUI programming from J2EE to JavaScript, right? So specific to the machine learning aspect of it, I heard about this technology when I was in about second year, third year, somewhere around that, or probably early fourth year. And I want to get started with that. And typically typically projects that you see in undergraduate level are, what can I say, a bit what can I say, bit automate problem than solving it. So I wanted to always focus on how we can solve it. Some of the first projects that we did was, or that I did was, to apply machine learning to predict the quantity of food, something that we touched upon on Sri Lankan examples about shopping malls using it. So pretty much I wanted to, we as a team, but I developed it, wanted to do it for the cafeteria. So like we explained in the examples about how Sri Lankan shopping malls use machine learning to predict the quantity, we did the similar thing with the cafeteria at our university. And around the third year, around the second year, around I think around late third year, early fourth year, we also wanted to, I mean, we were asked to do the final year project, right? And typically the projects that we do are about automating the problem that we have than trying to really solve it. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to apply machine learning to this cafeteria application, which earlier used just simple algorithms, simple statistics, and it was pretty well appreciated. And for the final year, I want to take it a step further. And around this time, I was learning self-learning, Azure machine learning. There was this Microsoft course on Coursera. Do check that out. It's pretty comprehensive. So what I did was I took the data for the food application. We did for the cafeteria. We applied machine learning. It was appreciated like I just shared. And I want to take it a step further, and I want to do something a bit challenging. So there was this research that was done on how we could rather the change in, if I try to explain it without any technical words, how the atmosphere changes before lightning strike. And as you would know, there would be light when lightning strikes, the electronic devices would burn, right? Devin, you have any experiences with your devices burning from light?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there was one time where my laptop and my, I think the fridge as well, like everything in the house completely just shut down. It was
Okay.
wonderful.
Insurance don't sell to them. Got it. So
Yeah.
there was this, if lightning strikes, then electronic devices, like Devni said, Devni experience rather will be burned. So what I want to do is I want to use machine learning to predict that happening based on the changes in the atmosphere. And it worked out pretty well. I think we had R squared value of 82%, yeah, 0.82%, 0.82 R squared value. So it worked out pretty well. And based on that, I also published a paper, which you said was the machine learning researcher with published machine learning researcher, where we published it in Rome, Italy, and got me to be one of the youngest to publish that as well. So was curious about it, self-learned, self-applied, and it turned out to be a pretty good thing. And it eventually helped me to be a lecturer as well, because right now the business, like I said, with the banks, the business studies are moving away from traditional business to tech areas. Having experience in this area helped me as well immensely to better adopt and teach digital areas as well. Yep, try to summarize then 5, 6, 10 years of experience into a few minutes. That's the take, Devni.
Yeah, 10 times results don't always require 10 times effort, right? Sometimes big changes can, come in small packages. And if you want to dramatically change your life, you don't need to run a 100-mile race or, get a PhD or completely reinvent yourself. I would say it's the small things done consistently that will take you a long way. Don't you agree?
Yes, and work smart than working harder, but at the same time, also there's this nice quote, I think Warren Buffett about if you try to if you try to do all the mistakes yourself and learn, one lifetime is not enough. So you'll have to learn from the mistakes of others as well. Adding on to what you said.
Yes. Well, Tuhan, now that you spoke about how you self-learned all these things and how you applied them into your university life, and you published papers upon your experience, let's help the audience a little bit more, and let's talk about execution. How would you, like, if you were to speak to a tech person and a non-tech person trying to get into machine learning, what would your timely advice be on that?
Excellent. I think I have been telling people self-learn. But your question is very valid. How to self-learn? So, so there are two ways. I think one way is you could do it from the beginning with your own solutions. There are programming languages such as Python, such as R programming, where you could do your own applications. But for you to get started for a very generic machine learning software, you could use existing applications like Azure Machine Learning, Amazon SageMaker, Apple ML Kit, to Google's Firebase Kit, and so on. So what you pretty much have to do is get a quality data set, enter it to the existing algorithms that is readily available in these platforms, and it will give you the output. So it's that simple for you to get started. And like we earlier said, that understanding machine learning is not that hard. Similarly, building machine learning applications is not that hard if you want to do a very few, even for a what can I say, for very generic applications that we have, because they are already readily available. They're readily available. Algorithms are already out there in platforms. You just have to know which one to use, and those courses will help you out in understanding what you need to do. But of course, you can build on that and do your own models using your own custom algorithms. After that, one thing I want to tell for the people who want to get started is machine learning is it includes a lot of statistics. Just don't be intimidated by it, because while it will definitely help you if you have a statistics or mathematics background. Not having that doesn't mean that you can't do it, because everything you need to learn about machine learning, the statistics or the mathematics needed for the machine learning solutions, will be taught in those courses if it requires it. So don't be intimidated by the cool names used by statisticians. You'll get the hang of it eventually. Jeff, back to you, Devni.
Okay, since there are already so many innovations happening related to machine learning, and since we had a comprehensive and detailed discussion on the present status of machine learning, let's take that and let's walk a few steps forward. What do you think machine learning would look like in the future?
Sure. So I hope this prediction goes right, because usually a lot of predictions, they don't go right, and whatever it goes right, but Jack Ma says is it's just coincidence. But based on what I see is that a lot of jobs will be replaced, a lot of repetitive jobs will be replaced, but at the same time, a lot of new jobs will be added. For example, there's this job about data scientists, data visualization experts, and all that, but they were not available 2 decades ago. So those jobs will be added to the existing about to the job marketplace, and some will be replaced. But don't be intimidated by it, or don't worry about it, because you will definitely have jobs, new exciting jobs, and all the mundane, boring, repetitive jobs will be replaced. So be willing to learn new skills. And what Jack Ma says is, adding on to that second part, if you by any chance want to be an entrepreneur, use machine learning, because it's incredibly cheap right now to use machine learning software than trying to get people to do it. So you could leverage machine learning and the rest of AI for you to be an entrepreneur, whereas people will be focused on more exciting, dynamic tasks. So exciting future. But I think the takeaway is that things will change. Be ready to learn if you want to thrive in the future as well. Back to Devni.
Yeah, the key is to learn how to learn, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, getting to our last question. Now that you've spent some time with us, Tuhan, and we've had a good discussion on this subject, please give us your perspective on IEEE Techverse on this initiative.
Sure. Do I get paid for this shout out?
Just give us your honest opinion.
Sure. So what I see is typical information that we have for Sri Lankan to consume is pretty okay, if I put it in a nice way, pretty not so value adding, doesn't really grow people. If you look at mainstream media, what you see in TV, or even if you just go to YouTube and see the location based suggestions, it's just entertainment. It doesn't really grow you. But this is, I mean, if that's the type of lifestyle you want, sure. But if you want to grow, I think this is one of the great initiatives that people can get a glimpse about the new technologies that are out there, which is really the gateway out of the economic situation you are in right now, even lifestyle you're in right now. And I think it's excellent that you're trying to expose new technologies to the people and trying to democratize that knowledge, so that more people can get started with tech and more people can unlock the lifestyle they would love. So it's an excellent thing. And I really wish you all the best to continue that. Back to you, Devni.
Thank you, Tuhan. That was some really valuable information that you provided us, and I'm sure our audience grabbed a lot of insights on our topic today: real world business applications of machine learning. Thank you very much, Tuhan Sapumanage, for joining us today in this podcast episode. And with that, we have come to the end of today's episode. And if you are interested in learning more about the latest cutting edge technology advancements, stay tuned with us through our podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, SoundCloud, and Radio Public, and YouTube, as we have many more sessions lined up for you. Thank you for listening, and see you with another interesting Tech Innovator episode.